Hi, folks. This is Don Meissner with the North Country Fishing Report. I got to tell you, through the last week, I've thought so much about what I could tell you all at a time when there's not a lot of people fishing, but there's so much that I have taken from the last year's fishing, and I wanted to pass on some of this to you. Now, number one is we've talked about lures, and there's so many lures to pick. I mean, they're making new ones every day, but how do you decide? What does a lure supposed to be? And I think of it, and what I think it really boils down to that you have to try to understand is, why do fish strike? And there's a number of reasons. First of all, let's go ahead to the newest time that will be coming up for us after the ice goes out, and that is the spawning time. Now, a lot of fish are protected during the spawning time to make sure that they can spawn. But at that time, they will strike for primarily the reason to protect their spawning grounds. That's why they'll pick a lure up and take it away. It's not out of hunger. It's not out of a need to eat. It's not out of anything else than to protect the territory that they have singled out to spawn in. And so that's number one. So any lure, if you put it near them at that time, they're going to hit. Obviously, fish strike primarily out of hunger. They have to eat, just like we do. But there's so much that comes into play here. It depends on the species. And let's look specifically at bass, because so many people sort of favor them. They sort of the glamour fish of the sport. And bass will hit so many other things than other fish will. And I think one of the reasons is it's built into them to just be an ultimate predator. I think about the Nature Center and the aquarium they have there. And Tracy has told me the one fish that they can't put in the aquarium is bass, because they'll try to eat every other fish that lives there. It's just an instinct with them. Other fish, even predators, aren't as predatory as bass seem to be. The other thing that you have to realize, I think, is that bass will hit a lot of times out of anger. Something angers them. And in this case, it might not be something that looks good to eat. Now, the Japanese are coming out with all kinds of really strange-looking soft plastic lures that have become the rage. And yet they don't look like anything that we've ever thought that bass will eat, because they don't look like anything that swims in our water or floats in our water. But for some reason, they become an incredible lure. Pros are using them. They claim that the bass haven't seen them before, and maybe that's something about it. But a lot of times, lures, they'll make a noise, they'll do something different, and they can elicit an anger reaction from the fish, especially bass. And the other thing that I think is important to understand is sometimes bass, or any fish, really any fish, will hit out of curiosity. They'll see something different going through the water. It doesn't cause fright in them because they are a predator. And so maybe they'll follow it and look at it and think, gee, I wonder if this is something good to eat, something that is good for me to get rid of because it's an invader into my territory. Who knows? And the final thing that I want you to be aware of, because most fish are school fish, and when they decide it's time to eat, there's only so much around that they can eat, but there may be a whole school of other bass there at the same time. So a lot of times during a feeding period, a feeding frenzy, they put all caution aside. They'll hit it, unlike any other time. They won't even hardly look at what's there. They'll think it's food. I got to get it before the other guy next to me gets it. It becomes a race to the goal, and it's a part of what we got to be aware of. So all these things make fish vulnerable. And if we understand it, we can understand better what type of lure, what type of color, what type of sound might make a difference. Until next time, folks, this is Don Meissner with the North Country Fishing Report.